Episode 595 of Good Luck High Five.
That's right. You're listening to a podcast that's for you if you play Magic the Gathering. If you love SilverBorder cards or not, we are here for you.
I'm one of your hosts, Maria.
I'm another one of your hosts, Megan.
And on today's episode, you might have guessed it, we're going to talk about SilverBorder in Commander play.
Is it for you? Well, don't worry. We're going to have a very special guest on today's show to talk to us all about, is SilverBorder right for you?
Yes.
For your Commander group?
Yes.
And if you're going to play it, some notable cards to stay away from or to definitely consider building around.
If you don't know what SilverBorder is, a quick primer. So these are cards that are played in unsets. I say that's UN dash, whatever, like they've been unstable.
Unfinity, most recently.
Yes, exactly. That's how the sets are named. And they were colored in SilverBorder to make sure that people knew that they weren't legal in like standard or modern or that kind of thing.
They used to be exclusively SilverBorder.
Yes.
These days, in the most recent Unfinity set, they actually moved to making the little holofoil stamp at the bottom. If it's a little acorn, that means it's a SilverBorder or not legal in, a classic Commander or other card game setting.
Exactly. But if your group wants to play with them, they can add a lot of fun and spice to your Commander games. And Eric's going to be here. Judge Eric from Commander Arcade is going to come on as a SilverBorder card lover and somebody who knows a lot about Commander.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
Yes.
To tell us about how to do it effectively in your decks, cards that you should probably stay away from, but he's not your dad, and cards that are really fun to play with that maybe fly under your radar.
But before we get into all of that, we have some people to thank. And first and foremost amongst them are you, the listeners, and especially the patrons of this podcast. Thank you so much to everyone who is a patron, no matter how long you have been one. We are recording this episode ahead of time, so we usually would thank our new patrons here. But don't worry, your pun will be coming for you.
It'll be coming for you.
You cannot escape. You're like, wow,
it.
maybe I escaped getting a terrible pun made out of my name.
Not.
It's not happening. Will come back for your name.
You can go to patreon.com/GLHF Magic to become a patron at a bunch of different dollar amounts and get a bunch of different awesome prizes, access to our Discord, early episode releases, longer episode releases, influencing our Commander episodes. You see this chair here for you? This chair is not for Eric coming on in a bit. This chair is for you.
For you.
As our new patron.
That's right.
This would be you
Come be
right
our friend.
Here. This would be you.
We truly, really do appreciate it more than can be said.
Absolutely.
Thank you as well to our sponsor, Card Kingdom, cardkingdom.com/GLHF, the place to go for all of your Magic needs. If what we talk about today inspires you,
I'm inspired
to go build yourself a goofy little SilverBorder Commander deck, then head on over to Card Kingdom for all of those singles that you might need for those decks.
You can also you can also order we're in the future, Modern Horizons 3.
Yes.
On cardkingdom.com/GLHF. If you want to play that, I want to draft it.
Yeah. We talked today a lot about our new Commander Arcade episode that's out.
Absolutely.
Which is, if you have not yet seen SilverBorder,
you gotta see it.
But we also, of course, recently played the Modern Horizons precons, and they were so fun. They are
so
excellent.
Good.
They were a great time. They're super powerful. If you're looking for a precon that you could bring to like a Commander game without worrying about the power level, absolutely one of these.
Oh yeah, they're mega powerful. We were just playing with them and you're like, could this card really do that? Yeah, I guess it can.
Yep.
So we've got two ends of the spectrum. If you want to be silly, they got you covered on SilverBordered. If you want to be really powerful, check them out for some Modern Horizons 3 stuff.
Card Kingdom, from silly to serious. One of the actually legitimate taglines that we've ever put. The most legitimate tagline we have maybe yet tried to get them.
Enough monkeys in a room at a typewriter will eventually come up with a good Card Kingdom slogan.
Not Shakespeare, but like a halfway decent slogan for a store.
So check them out, everyone, and check out our new episode of Commander Arcade, youtube.com/@GLHF Commander. We play SilverBordered Commander decks. It is so much fun.
It is.
Megan shoots decks with a Nerf gun.
Come for that alone. But also, that's like not even there is so much more shenanigan to it than that.
There's so much shenanigan.
There is a card that I learned about in the episode that's one of my new favorite cards.
Oh my gosh, I want to know which one it is.
Oh my goodness, do you want me to tell you? I'll tell you off camera.
Yeah,
I'm not going to tell you right now. You have to watch.
I have a guess.
Okay.
But we'll find out after we stop recording. And you'll find out if you watch the episode. Maybe you'll be able to understand what Megan's talking about.
Oh man, go watch it. It's so fun. Go watch the episode. All right, Maria, should we get Eric in here?
Yeah, let's get him in here. I'm getting my large hook and I'm going to hook it around him and pull him on stage like a vaudeville act. Hey friends, we have Judge Eric here with us in the studio today to tell us all about the weird, wild, and wonderful world of playing with silver bordered cards in Commander. Welcome, Eric. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so excited to talk silver border. Not only because we have a Commander Arcade, as we mentioned, that's coming out this week, that has come out this week, that features silver bordered nonsense and plenty of it, but because it kind of sparked our interest in silver bordered Commander and everything associated with it because it just was such a fun time.
It was one of the best times that we have had. Also, Judge Eric, welcome. You have been on Commander Arcade now many times.
Yes.
But you have not been on Good Luck High Five.
That's a good point, Megan.
No, I've not. This is my first time on the show, and I'm very excited to be here.
Wow.
I will have to say, if you haven't seen that episode, the silver bordered one, it is a hoot.
Certified hoot from Judge Eric. And we asked you specifically on just, not only because you've never been on Good Luck High Five, but you've been on Commander Arcade a number of times, like Megan said, but because you know a thing or two about silver bordered play, but give people a little background about who you are and how you're involved with Magic.
Yeah, so I'm a level 2 judge right now. Well, 2.5 if you want to call it that, because there is a half certification through Judge Foundry.
I'm blown away. I literally
what?
He told us this right before we started recording, and Maria and I both were like,
I thought you were
joke.
kidding.
No, there's an uncertification that Judge Foundry published that has a bunch of silver bordered effects and how you should rule on them.
So it is kind of a joke.
Yeah, it is kind of a
Wow.
joke. It's not like a real thing, but it is a real thing.
So you have taken the certification for silver border.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
So that makes me a little bit ahead of the game when it comes to just being able to talk about it knowledgeably. But I've also been playing the game for a very long time. I remember when I was in high school, some friends of mine and I did a booster draft of the format Unhinged, I think it was. It's the one with the expansion symbol that looks like a horseshoe. And so we did a draft of that in my high school library.
Wow.
Cute.
Where we had a lot of fun. I remember there's a card from Unhinged that basically changed its power and toughness based on what time it was. And the time changed from noon to 1 o'clock in the middle of my game, and the creature got a lot worse.
Wow. Yes, you're correct. That is
Amazing.
Unhinged with the horseshoe.
Yeah.
I'm just taking a glance through some of those cards now on Scryfall, and it looks pretty wild, I gotta tell you.
I think the most notorious card from Unhinged is the card Cheaty Face, which is a card that lets you put it into play for free if you can sneak it into play without your opponent noticing.
Oh
yes.
my gosh, this is exactly my kind of card. I would love to play with this card.
For you at home, Cheaty Face is blue for a 2/2 with flying, but it says if Cheaty Face is in your hand, you may sneak it onto the battlefield. If an opponent catches you right away, you have to exile it. If they don't, you got a 2/2.
Oh wow, this would be my favorite thing to try and do in a game for sure.
Yes.
It would be so hard though if you're playing Commander because you got 3 people looking at you.
We did have an argument way back when because on the art of the card, it shows the Djinn stealing one of the blue mana symbols. So casting it for blue is also usually on the table.
I mean, you can make the argument.
It looks to me that it is blue.
I agree. I think this card costs blue. I don't know what Scryfall's trying to tell me here anyway. So we're going to get into it, everybody. If you think that silver border, you're like, I've never played with a Commander. I'm a classic Commander player. We're going to talk about how it might enhance some of your Commander games. If you are a little bit wary of it, we're going to work you through some of the ways to put it into your game so it doesn't feel so daunting or scary. And we're going to tell you a bunch of strategies about if you're building silver border Commander decks, how to do it in a way that's going to make it the most fun for everybody in your pod. But the first question you need to ask yourself is silver border for you? Eric.
I can answer that question pretty easily. Yes. Silver bordered Magic is for me, with some caveats, which we'll get into. But it's a lot of fun. One of my favorite silver bordered experiences that I have playing Magic at a tournament. Actually, I was at Magic Con Minneapolis, so our local Magic Con, and I was playing Two-Headed Giant with my partner. And the way this Two-Headed Giant format worked was that the two of us each got a bunch of collector boosters in addition to some other kind of chaos packs like your Modern Horizons or your mystery boosters, that sort of thing, which meant that everyone in the tournament had at least some level of cards in their deck because there were the playtest cards for mystery boosters. However, when I got my packs, I realized I had an Unfinity collector booster in my pool.
Oh, sick.
Which Unfinity has a list sheet that includes a bunch of SilverBordered cards from Magic's past, like Richard Garfield, PhD, or the like. We opened the card. The countdown is at 1. The countdown is at 1 is a sub-game card that makes you and your opponents play a Magic subgame where the losers of that subgame for the rest of the main game now take double damage from everything.
Oh, wow. I love it. This costs 3 red. It's a sorcery.
Because this was at a Magic Con, I realized that space is limited and that this is an event where SilverBorder cards don't necessarily get played very often. So I called a judge over to ask them, hey, I open this card. Can I play it? And if I do play it, am I going to cause a problem by needing to take up literally double the table space to set up a subgame?
So polite.
Am I going to be a problem? Please inform me.
So the judge went over to the head judge and they talked about it for a bit. They were actually very excited that I had this card. And so they came back over to the table and they said, you know what? Yes, play this card. Not only do we want you to play this card, but if you do ever successfully cast it, we are going to come over and give you and your opponent some bonus prizes for the event. So, of course, I put it in my deck. And round 2, I was able to cast the countdown is at 1.
Yes.
And my opponents and I all had to move over to the adjacent table to set up our subgame. Where my partner and I opened our hands, I had a removal spell that cost 2 mana, and we were on the play. And she had a 1-drop, a 1/2 for 1. Now, the countdown is at 1, sets your life totals to 1 for the subgame. So we're on the play. We're going to play a 1-drop on 1, and I have removal spell if they play a blocker. We're going to get them.
You can't be beat.
We can't be beat, except we were beat because our opponents drew their opening hand and said, oh, and just showed us a mountain and a lightning bolt.
Oh, no way!
So we immediately died in the subgame before we even started playing.
Amazing.
You played yourself. The countdown is at 1.
I will say, despite having to take double damage for the rest of the actual game, we did still win at 2.
Unreal.
Amazing.
Yes, it was a very, very close game.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just emblematic of the cool stories that you can have playing in SilverBorder. I don't know. What would you say to somebody who's like, I'm not sure if this is for me? What would you tell them to like convince them that maybe they should try it out?
Well, I would ask them, like, have you played SilverBorder before? Because a lot of times there is like this stigma behind, my opponents are going to play these cards that are really weird that might do things that I'm not comfortable with. Where if you haven't played them before, like that could certainly be true. But also if you have played them before,
Sorry,
and you've had a bad
just came in
experience.
here and sneezed.
If you have played them before and you had a bad experience, it's finding out like what about that experience was bad, because SilverBorder cards are so varied and the effects that they can cause are so different that maybe you might want to figure out like what kinds of cards you do like playing with. And of course, if you don't want to play them at all, that's totally understandable. But I think you're missing out on some really fun opportunities if you're just discarding it without giving it more thought.
Ooh, very interesting.
Yeah.
Love that. Love that.
So that leads into how you should have this conversation, which often commander tables should already be able to know how to do this with Rule 0 talks, right?
So this has been a bit of a discourse, as we like to say, on Twitter recently about Rule 0 and how much it needs to be utilized and all that kind of stuff. And like, is it just the rules committee shirking their responsibilities by not banning things and making people talk about it instead? Before we get into Rule 0 here in SilverBorder, can you comment on that?
So my hot take about SilverBorder.
Oh, yes. I love a hot take.
Yeah, my hot take is that I think SilverBorder cards should be legal in Commander by default with banning problematic ones.
Oh.
And the reason I say this is because Commander is a pretty casual format. As designed, like it was originally for like judges made it so they could have things to do between tournaments they're judging.
If you want to know the history of Commander, you can check out our episode called "The History of Commander" with Judge Rob.
And now Commander is getting more competitive. Like there are competitive Commander tournaments. To me, it feels like there should be a divide between competitive Commander and casual Commander, and a great way to do that is to legalize SilverBordered cards because you're never going to allow those in a competitive tournament.
So this would, what do you think of is CEDH? Would you call that the competitive version of Commander?
Yeah, that's what folks usually call it. I've heard of it as many different names, but for the most part, CEDH,
George.
competitive EDH with a capital C, if you want to put it that way, rather than casual EDH with a capital C.
I'm confused.
Very helpful. Very helpful. Yes.
But competitive commander tournaments, which exist, and we're actually working as a judge community to try to figure out how to judge these events in a way that makes it fair for the players. That's different than 1v1 competitive events. But silver-bordered cards.
I know. We're just gonna. I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
Too many tangents, but like,
Yeah.
How is it even possible to play multiplayer competitive commander?
I also just want to say, sorry, I'm going to jump in here on this tangent.
Okay.
As a person who has recently developed like a deep enjoyment of playing our commander games, our casual commander games, I have my desire to play a competitive commander game. I cannot describe because it is so far below zero.
So it sounds like
it's like 0 on Kelvin, and we're talking about Fahrenheit. I'm like a absolute 0 Kelvin temperature on wanting to play competitive.
So it sounds like an idea of us doing an all CEDH episode might not necessarily be your Steam.
We could try it, and I think that it would be maybe funny once, and then I would quickly be like,
I think
goodbye.
you would like it, Megan.
Because I am very competitive.
Yes, and you like to
That's
play
true.
powerful decks.
Okay.
I might be a little worried that she could get addicted to it. Right?
That's what I think. I think
Yeah.
that's what I think. I'm shocked by what you said just now.
Oh my goodness! All right, you all. I guess there's nothing for me to do except to rip out that Narset deck and go find myself a table of people who are going to be okay with it.
But I mean, it does give me a question though, like because people are talking about these tournaments, we're usually thinking of it's got to be one-on-one, right?
Right.
Are you telling me that there is a possibility of it being multiplayer?
But that's how CEDH is run. It's four-player pods, unless you have like a number of players that don't divide by 4, then you might have a 3-player pod or 2 3-player pods. But the idea is it is
And
a
in a
multiplayer
tournament format, though.
Yes, it is a multiplayer tournament where the winner of the pod gets the match points. If there's a draw, everybody gets a match point. And then we're talking about like how do we want to change these rules, because that's what we're used to in a competitive tournament. Do we want to change the number of match points given in a round? Do we want to change the way penalties work? Because if you submit a deck list for a tournament and you have some major problems with your deck list, getting a game loss in a multiplayer event is pretty rough.
Yeah.
Do we want to give different penalties? Like, for example, is it reasonable to have a penalty like maybe you skip a turn instead of having a game loss?
And also, like, oh, I'm so sorry, but my brain is like, also like, do you only get match points if you win? Do you get match points for being being the second to last person standing?
Yeah, so these are the questions that need to be answered for these types of tournaments. Now, these tournaments exist, like they're happening all the time.
Yeah.
They run at MagicCons, they run at other major events, and so they're happening. But you need to be tuned in if you're going to play in these events, like what the rules currently are, because as we grow as a game, we're trying to figure out like what are the ways that we should run this that's the most fair, and also the way that players can have the most fun, because that's the main reason we play this game.
I get so shocked by like the idea of, I mean, the politics angle of it has got to be so
That's
bizarre.
like, I cannot imagine trying to navigate that part of it in like a competitive format. Maria, we're not here to talk about that.
No, we're not here to talk about that. I will say this.
It's just so interesting.
I will say this. One of my favorite things about the reading through the CEDH like rules, the proposals that we're having through the judge community for how to do this competitively is that the active player can tell everyone to shut up is a thing that we're like trying to say you can enforce, because if I'm playing a game and I have a removal spell and another player saying, no, you can't kill this, you have to kill this. I can tell them, please just let me play. And then the game moves on.
I was going to say, like, what's the polite way that y'all are, like, putting that wording in? Yeah. Hey, everyone at this table, shut up.
Cut up. They're all mic'd, and you cut their mics.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be, like, just, like, a nice verb, like the
just like a debate.
Finger across the throat, like, cut it out.
Giant cane off stage that pulls their chair away from the table.
Okay, once these tournaments start to become more of a thing, we'll definitely have to have you back on, Eric, to talk about this some more, because I am fascinated by the idea of this. And it's becoming more and more of a thing. Like the first, I don't know, I saw one that was offered for money recently, and that kind of thing. So, but like Megan said, that's not our main topic of discussion here.
Like, wow, we could really keep going about this, I think, for probably an hour.
Probably.
This is why it's a hot take.
Yes.
Okay, so you think SilverBorder should just be in Commander, and we go from there, and then they ban what they need to ban.
Yeah, and we actually did have a period for, I think it was 2 weeks or a month, something like that, back when Unstable came out, that the rules committee came out and said, yep, SilverBorder's legal. until a specific date when it's not legal anymore. And so they did try that at one point in the past. I did build a SilverBorder deck back then to play it because I thought it would be fun during that period. I enjoyed it. And then I tore it apart because I needed the cards for other decks, as is the way. It was a Nicol Bolas deck that used all the villain cards from Unstable. Nicol Bolas's Evil League of Evil. Maybe I'll put it back together at some point. But yeah, so you want to have a conversation with your group. Talk about like, hey, is this something we want to try? What kind of effects do we want to play? And I've actually taken the different types of SilverBordered effects that exist and put them in different buckets that I have created.
Figuratively.
Yes. I didn't literally put them in buckets, though I could have.
I was going to say, it's an unset. Like, you could, we're trying SilverBorder, you could have actually put them in buckets.
Yeah, so we're trying to ask questions like, what kind of effects are disruptive? What works for our play space? Like, can you get up and run around the table in your play space? Can you scream at the top of your lungs in your play space? What sort of things do you want to be able to do or not be able to do? Do you want to be able to call your friends? Literally. Do you want to have someone who's spectating have to sit down and do something in the game? Do you want to pull some Nerf guns and start shooting them at each other? These are different effects that exist in SilverBorder that you'll probably want to talk about with your group.
I think one of the very notable ones is that there's like multiple SilverBorder cards, I think especially from Unfinity and maybe the set right before that reference someone who is in the room but not playing the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like,
like
do we want to make sure, do we want to contact someone to come sit in this room and be a person not playing this game of Magic?
Hey, do you like squirrels?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. That card too. Yeah,
I'm referencing the card Squirrel Dealer, I think is the name of the card. Yeah.
I think I played that in the pre-release.
Yeah.
And I was just like, if anybody needs a Squirrel Dealer, yes, you just come over to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You will get it.
So the buckets that I have, I've divided them. I think I have 7 different buckets. The first one I want to talk about is cards that work if you just squint your eyes a little bit, where these are cards that are almost Magic cards. They, in some cases, if they printed them in black border, they would absolutely work as is.
So everybody, if you want to follow along at home, in the show notes, there is a link to a moxfield list that Eric put together that has these cards in this bucket. You go up to group and you sort by type and tags, and you'll see that they're in their various groups. So you can look at these as Eric explains them.
Yeah, so almost a Magic card. These are cards that usually work within the rules just fine or almost work within the rules just fine, but don't quite fit certain criteria, so they don't actually work. My favorite of these is the card Blast from the Past, which is a card they could absolutely print today. It's 2 and a red for an instant, though you'll never cast it for its mana cost, because it has Madness, Cycling, Kicker, Flashback, and Buyback. So what you usually do is you cycle it and then cast its Madness cost. And then if you have enough mana, you buy it back so you can do it again. But what it does is it does 2 damage to any target, and then you may, if you kicked it, you get a Goblin. So the idea behind this card,
it's almost a Magic card.
which could absolutely work in black bordered, except for the fact that it has 5 mechanics on it, which is a lot, is you cycle it, you Madness it, you buy it back, and then you do it again. And if you have enough for the kicker, you get a Goblin. And if it ends up in your graveyard, you can flash it back and then also buy it back. So it goes back to your hand instead of exile.
Incredible.
I love this card.
This card is great. I have it in my cube at home, which doesn't have very many silver-bordered cards in it, but this is one of them because it works just fine in black border.
Silver's leaking all over in your cards and decks here, Eric. You got a silver leak somewhere in your house.
But these cards usually are the cards that people are going to say, you know what? I think it's fine if we play with these cards.
Sure.
Because they mostly work. They do some cool effects. Far Out lets you take any modal card and choose all modes for it.
Oh, nice.
Which absolutely does not work in the rules. But when I tell you it lets you choose all your modes, you say, I know what that does.
I understand what you
so
meant.
it's very intuitive. This is why it's almost a Magic card. Baron von Count is very cool. Your commander.
Yes.
They could have very easily reworded this card to make it function just fine in black bordered.
I'll read it for you all now because this is in the video if you haven't seen it yet. This is 1 black red for a 3/3. Human villain, by the way. Enters the battlefield with a doom counter on 5. Whenever you cast a spell with the indicated numeral in its mana cost, text box, power, or toughness, move the doom counter 1 numeral to the left. When the doom counter moves from 1, destroy target player and put that Doom counter on 5. It was a blast, literally.
and a great example of a card that you can intuit pretty easily.
Yes, you take a player out of the game.
Yep.
Good job, Baron.
A lot of the playtest cards that you'll see from mystery boosters also fall into this bucket. I have a couple examples here in Lightning Colt, which is an instant horse for 3 red.
That sounds like a card you'd like, Megan.
Oh, yes.
Instant horse.
Instant horse is something I'm very into.
When it enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to any target. You can intuitively understand that it's a creature. It's a 3/3. You can cast it instant speed because it says instant. Functionally in the rules, this card is nonsense, but you can understand exactly what it does by reading it.
It's an instant horse.
It's just a horse with flash.
Yes, it's a horse with flash. That is a Flame Tongue Kavu as well, or whatever, right?
Yeah. And it also triggers all of the things that say instant. If you have the ability to make instants in your graveyard have flashback, you could give it flashback, which doesn't make any sense. It's great. And Personal Decoy is another one of these playtest cards that I think is a lot of fun and functions just fine. It's a planeswalker that enters with loyalty equal
Hold
to
on,
your
what kind
life
of planeswalker
total.
is it?
It's a planeswalker duck
Thank you.
because it's a personal decoy.
I love him a lot. Look at this. This duck is so cute.
These were the playtest cards that were drawn by members of Wizards of the Coast,
Yes.
just like at their desks. They're like assigned, and then they used just like a pen and ink, and they drew all these cards. And some of them are better than others. And I got to say, this
is
duck
one of the best.
is a good
Yes,
one.
it's fantastic.
This person
incredible.
can draw. Who drew this one? They're very cute. Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
And so a lot of these almost Magic cards, I find them very fun and very easy to slot into decks that they could exist for. My Grimlock Dinosaur deck has an Old Fogy in it. Old Fogy is a great joke. It's from Unhinged originally, and in Unhinged, that was when they had changed the border from Old Border to New Border. But this was the only Old Bordered card in the set. Because it's a throwback to how they used to refer to creatures as summon creature type instead of creature dash type.
Yeah.
And it's also referencing all of the old mechanics that they don't really do anymore, like phasing and cumulative upkeep. And so Old Fogy has all these things combined on one card that does function just fine in black bordered, but is too silly to exist in black bordered.
I mean, it's a 2-mana 7/7.
Yes, that phases out, and then you have to pay for it when it comes back.
Cumulative upkeep, classic.
And echo.
Yeah, tough.
And
tough.
fading, yeah.
Yep, and then it's going to fade away, so
Yeah.
you only get a few turns with it, but it does band with your other dinosaurs, which at the time, this was the only dinosaur that existed.
It does have
Protection
also
from
protection from
hominids?
hominids.
What's
Yep.
a hominid?
Hominid are like
crab.
crab people.
Everything become crab.
Yep, the carcinization.
Also,
Comes for us all.
snow-covered planeswalk.
Yep.
So,
Very
Yep.
specific.
anyways,
Great
So
card.
yeah, Old Fogy, very funny. It's great in a dinosaur deck because a 2-mana 7/7 is awesome, even if it has a bunch of random downsides. But yeah, so that's my almost a Magic card bucket. The next bucket to talk about is the outside assistance.
Ooh,
bucket.
yes, very important.
These are cards that either need help from someone else or help from some other source, like the internet, or a way to randomize Magic cards, or a way to reference a specific website or something. So the first example I want to give here is the card Kind Slaver. So Kind Slaver is obviously
Play on Mindslaver.
yeah. So it's a 5-mana artifact. You can pay 5 and tap it and sacrifice it to have someone from outside the game control target player's next turn. So neither you nor the player, or sorry, neither player, so neither you nor your opponent can advise this outside person on what they should do with this turn. You're literally just asking a stranger, or maybe they're your friend, to take over my opponent's next turn and make all their decisions for them.
Excellent. I want this person to only have the most rudimentary knowledge of Magic possible.
I want them to have
yes.
none.
They're like, oh, I don't know. Can I do this?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you get like a major rules violation and the game lost, and you're out of this $10,000 tournament.
Yeah. That allows SilverBorder for some reason.
That's what I'm saying. To our earlier discussion. Anyway, continue.
So Urza Academy Headmaster. This card is from Unstable. It is a 5-mana planeswalker. It costs 1 of each color. That starts with 4 loyalty. And it has a very unusual set of loyalty abilities.
I remember when I saw this card come out, I was shook.
What you do when you activate it is you head to askurza.com and then you click on the loyalty abilities of the Urza Planeswalker. And then it will tell you what to do. So I see Megan pulled it up here. We just +1'd our Urza, and it says during target opponent's next turn, creatures that player control attack Urza if able.
Oh, all right.
All right, let's -1 him.
All right, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put one pile in your hand and the other on the bottom of your library in any order.
Oh, nice.
Let's
Just a
ultimate.
little.
Let's ultimate him.
All right, here we go.
All right.
-6.
All right, you get an emblem with artifacts, creatures, enchantments, and lands you control have indestructible.
Sick.
Wow. Okay.
But every time you hit these buttons, we're going to get something different.
Yeah.
I have a lot of fun with this card. It used to be the commander of my Weatherlight Saga commander deck.
I really like this.
Love it.
Until they printed Captain Sisay, the new one, the 5-color one.
Oh, yeah. So these are randomized, I believe, from every Planeswalker ability that have ever been made. Is that correct?
Mostly.
Mostly?
They took out some of the ones that don't really work unless you are able to like reference a specific thing.
Sure. But that's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is very fun. I really enjoy that card. It usually dies when I play it, but that's because it's potentially very powerful.
I think it's so cool. I love
Yeah, I
randomness.
agree.
So thumbs up for me on Urza Academy Headmaster.
There's also a series of cards that not only do you need to reference the internet, but also need to reference something rather complicated. Discord Lord of Disharmony is one of those. Discord is a flying 3/5 that says at the beginning of your end step, choose a random non-land magic card. Until your next end step, you can cast a copy of that card. So you need a way to randomly generate a
find a
non-land
card.
magic card. Scryfall is a good way to do
Scryfall.com.
this.
Here you go. Are y'all ready? We're going to
Ooh,
generate
yes.
one.
Generate.
Yeah, just go until you hit a non-land. Which
We got an Urza's armor.
Yeah, so with Discord, you'd be able to cast this Urza's armor until your next turn.
I opt not to.
I got Lord of the Nazgul. So this is a 4/3 flyer.
That seems pretty strong.
Mine is a 6-mana artifact that says if a source would deal damage to you, prevent one of that damage.
Well,
Yeah,
Can't
that's
win 'em
how I
all.
feel about mine.
I don't know that I want to pay 6 mana for that.
No, I don't think so.
And so you'll need a way, if you're going to play these cards, to be able to pull up these random lists or something. You could do it on a smartphone, you could do it on a laptop, but having the ability to do it is going to be important before you put the card in your deck. And some folks might not necessarily have good cell service or might be playing where they don't have access to any smart devices. And so maybe don't play with those cards if you're doing that.
good point.
This is a pony.
Yeah, it's from the My Little Pony, the newest charity set that they
Wow,
released. Yeah.
evil.
Evil pony.
It's a chimera.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with My Little Pony, but I'm assuming it's one of the villains from the show because it's a red-black card.
I'm going to tell you something that I guess I should have known, but I didn't think about it until now. I didn't realize the world of My Little Pony had villains.
I mean, honestly, neither did I.
Yeah,
but
I just thought that everyone got along.
It's just there's never any
Thought everyone
conflict
was
in
like,
the show.
exactly, like that's what I thought. Like, why not? Everyone's just like pretty chill
They're
all
just
the
having
time.
a good time. Every pony.
All right. Anyways.
The theme of the show is friendship is magic or something
Exactly,
like that.
right?
Yeah,
Like, you're
exactly.
telling me that show has villains? All right.
I guess it goes pretty deep because Discord seems kind of evil. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, Discord seems pretty evil. Anyway, all right. Next bucket.
Yeah, what is our next bucket?
Next bucket is cards that introduce minigames.
Yes. So SilverBorder cards have a lot of mini games. You might have to arm wrestle your opponent or hold your breath or go underneath the table to play a subgame of Magic, which is the card that I'm referring to here, which is Enter the Dungeon.
This happened when we played this Loading Ready Run and their
It's true.
pre-release.
One of the funniest moments from that probably the funniest moment from that pre-release was the Enter the Dungeon.
Wow, it wasn't Adam traumatizing me by eating that chicken.
I loved that.
To be fair, they had to completely rebuild their stream room in order to make the card function.
That's true. No, I know.
This is a backstory of
Yes.
that was that we knew that it was going to be in somebody's deck because they had it in their pool. And so what occurred is they were like, yeah, I'm going to play this card. And James and the whole crew was like, they worked like, I don't know how fast it was to be able to make sure that they could transition the room to play under the table when that moment
and
came to
also
it.
still
And still
stream it.
Stream it.
It was great. It was really good.
Wonderful teamwork, I got to say, to LLR in that one.
And so Enter the Dungeon, black, for a sorcery. Players play a Magic subgame starting at 5 life and using their libraries as their decks. The winner of the subgame gets to search their library for 2 cards and put them in their hand. But the important thing about this card is that you play the subgame underneath the table.
I love it so
Yes.
much. this is great. I recall that sub game not being very quick either, because like 5 sometimes is kind of a little bit tough to get somebody down from based on your hand. But yeah.
Richard Garfield PhD is another mini game card. It allows you to play a game that has been around in Magic for a very long time called Mental Magic, which is you can play with any library of cards. What you do is instead of playing the card that you have in your hand, you play another card with the same mana cost whenever you cast a spell. So Richard Garfield says you can play those cards as though they were other cards with the same mana cost. So if you have something that costs green, for example, in your hand, you could play it as Snakeskin Veil or Land War Elves, or whatever other card costs a single green. You want a Birds of Paradise? There you go.
You just have to know those cards in your brain.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe don't play this card with someone who just started playing.
Rude. Quite rude. That would be very rude.
That'd be tough for them.
Unkind.
Or at the very least, if you're going to do that, maybe stick to cards from Standard.
And obviously the answer is Slippery Boggle, but I digress.
Slippery Boggle costs a hybrid green blue, which is
count?
a different card. Yep.
Oh, I got 2.5 judge leveled.
So our next bucket is dexterity cards. These fall similarly to minigames, but usually require you to be active in some sort of way. Devil K Neville is a great card from Unfinity. The theme of this card is that he is a motorcycle stuntman. And so this card is going to have to jump over several magic cards. And if it successfully does without crashing into any of them, you get a bunch of +1/+1 counters.
Great.
There is a video. I think the card has a link on it to show you how to do the actual jumping of the card.
You can watch a little video with Kathleen from Loading Ready Run.
Yep.
Showing us how to jump Devil K Neville.
Yes.
Oh, this is great. I remember this video from back in the day watching it. It's so good.
So if your group doesn't really want to play with dexterity cards, or if someone in your play group maybe has a mobility issue or something that might prevent them from wanting to play with dexterity cards or being able to, maybe don't play with them. But some other examples of these are cards like Chaos Confetti. Chaos Confetti is a card from Unglued. It's a 4-mana artifact. You can sacrifice it and tear it up and throw all of the pieces of the torn up card onto the battlefield, and then you destroy everything that was hit with one of those pieces.
Great.
Which of course means you have to destroy the card. But you get a very silly effect.
I would be so sad. Like, I don't want to tear up this guy. How many copies of him still exist? I mean,
it is a common from Unglued.
Well, people just be tearing him up all the time.
Exactly. Yep. This and another card. There's another card that requires you to tear it up called Blacker Lotus that we'll talk about in a little bit in the power bucket. But it's a Black Lotus that you have to tear up.
He costs 50 cents at Card Kingdom.
That's what I'm saying. Like, okay, like I think that you're unnecessarily worrying about Chaos Confetti. How many Chaos Confettis do you think get torn up in a year?
Ooh, good question.
Probably not very many.
Exactly. I'm going to go with like 2.
Really? Only 2?
I think 2.
Mm-hmm.
If you have torn up a Chaos Confetti or witnessed one in the year 2023, please comment on this video and let us know.
We need to know.
Because we need to find out.
For data collection purposes.
Yeah, this is official.
Just let us know. Actually, just let us know if you've ever done it and the year in which you participated.
There we go.
Yes,
there we go. There we go. That's
all right.
Fine. Yeah.
Okay.
So the other dexterity card I want to talk about is also the card Nerf War.
Oh yeah.
So Nerf War, awesome card. If you'll allow me.
Oh, you've come prepared, Eric. I see.
I can grab my Nerf gun that I have here for some reason. If you'd like to see more Nerf action, check out our Commander game.
Oh, you absolutely need to, everyone.
But this card says take a Nerf blaster and fire at a library until empty. And for every card you knock off of that library with the Nerf blaster, you do a half damage to that library's owner.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Very excellent.
I don't know a deck that I would, if I'm playing red-blue, Nerf War is in it.
Yeah.
Period.
Absolutely.
How
Very
fun.
fun card.
I love that. Not as easy as it might seem, Megan. Is that correct?
You know what? I only got worse at it, so I don't know what to tell you about that.
And the fifth bucket that you want to talk about.
The fifth bucket I want to talk about are cards that are game warping. These are cards that, if SilverBorder was legalized, would probably be banned because they're a little bit powerful. Might end the game on the spot, might give you a
I
very
see.
strong advantage.
That's a little powerful.
So Blacker Lotus, which I mentioned before, is a Black Lotus that gives you 4 mana when you sacrifice it, but you have to tear up the Blacker Lotus.
Wow, and it's $21.
Oh my God.
So like, how
People are playing this card.
Wow.
I mean, it doesn't have any colors, so you can put it in any
That's
deck.
a lot.
You could play something that costs 5 or 6 mana on turn 1. Like that's pretty good.
All right. All right.
I guess you
Yeah.
got to buy a lot of Blacker Lotuses at $21 a pop.
Yeah.
Good grief.
So Gleemax is another one I want to talk about. It's a card that costs 1 million mana. It also says you choose all targets for all spells and abilities. So the million mana cost is not really something that we're ever going to get to unless you get an infinite mana combo. But cheating this into play is pretty trivial because it's an artifact.
Yeah.
And being able to choose all targets for everything for the rest of the game is not only powerful, but it's also very annoying.
Go ahead, next
yeah.
one.
Let's talk about incoming with an exclamation point. Incoming costs 8 mana. It's 4 green for a sorcery. Each player searches their library for any number of artifact, creature, enchantment, or land cards and puts them on the battlefield.
Oh,
That's all it does. It ends the game immediately.
you just put everything in.
Just
play.
immediately.
You
Yep.
you hoof.
Not only does it end the game immediately, but it ends the game in a really awkward way where if multiple people have infinite combos, now you have them all comboing off at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
It's a mess of a card.
Yes. That one doesn't seem too fun to have to figure out at the end.
No, and then also you everyone has to search their deck for every card and then put them all into play and then shuffle. And
2
then
hours later.
Yeah, 2 hours later, exactly. So we have Mox Lotus, which is another crazy mana generation card. It costs 15 mana, but when you tap it, it gives you infinite colorless mana. You can also pay 100 mana to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool.
Oh,
Wow.
Yes, it also shuts off mana burn, but that doesn't exist anymore.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, so you know,
Okay.
tap infinite mana. Like I can't see that being a problem.
No, absolutely
it's totally
not.
fine.
Yeah. Rules Layer is this is a card. It says state-based actions don't
gosh.
apply to you or other permanents you control.
So that's the rules text on the card. And then the rest of the rules text on the card is excessive. It's a giant paragraph that has to explain what the heck it just meant.
My recommendation to you is to not play this card unless you can fully explain it.
Can you fully explain it, Eric?
I mean, I can, but how much time do we have?
Can you do it in 10 words or less?
Damage won't kill stuff. You won't die from being at 0.
You passed 10 words. I'm just
That's
letting
okay.
you know.
He's giving us 10 bullet points.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
giving you some bullet points on things that
Okay.
don't happen because of this.
Wow.
Auras won't go in the graveyard when a creature gets killed. Like
I'm in.
the game starts to fall apart. Reality starts collapsing when this card is on the battlefield.
The fabric of the universe dissolves.
Yes, it's very funny. It's basically a super platinum angel.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
All right.
Wow. Okay.
So
Nightmare.
Slivdrazi Monstrosity is also very strong if you're playing Slivers. It gives Slivers are Eldrazi in addition to their creature types, and Slivers you control have Devoid and Annihilator 1.
Okay.
Couldn't possibly be an issue.
Yeah, no,
You can
not
also
at all.
pay 3 to make Sliver tokens that you can sacrifice for colorless mana.
Okay. This is busted.
Great. Nice.
Busted right in half. Okay. So these ones you would recommend against.
Oh no, actually, I don't recommend against these. I just recommend having a conversation because if you want to play with powerful cards, go for it. But obviously, there's the caveat of these are very powerful cards. There are cards that I actively don't think you should play with that are in a different bucket.
Oh,
That's
okay.
right. Which I
okay.
think is
Yes.
our next bucket.
Yeah, so this bucket I'm calling I'm Not Your Dad. So there are a lot of SilverBorder cards that can do some very wacky things. The first example of these I want to talk about is the card Ashnod's Coupon. So Ashnod's Coupon seems innocuous enough. 0 mana artifact, you can tap and sacrifice it to make target player go and get you a drink.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Which could be fine. Like maybe you have something in the fridge and you want them to go and get it for you. However, it has the errata that you have to pay for the drink. If you combine this card with the card R&D's Secret Lair, which says you ignore errata on cards, now suddenly you can ask someone to get you a drink that could be anything. Hey, run down the street to the bar and buy me something expensive. Go get a very expensive bottle of wine or something.
I need you to go to France and get a bottle of chartreuse fresh off the monk's processing line.
And the only way you could deal with this in that situation is to concede, which I don't recommend this. It's kind of like bullying at that point, where unless your friends are in on the joke.
bullying.
It is, especially if you're playing with a stranger, right?
I'm laughing because you're right. It is.
So again, I'm not your dad. I'm not going to tell you not to play with this card. But if you are going to play with this card, your table needs to know about it and that you're playing this combo and that it could happen because, like, don't be rude.
I mean, there's also like, you can just be like, well, if this combo happens, all I'm going to have you do is go over to my robot bar. His name is Lloyd. Thank you for asking. And just make me a mixed drink of my own stuff. Like that's the most that I would ever make somebody do. You know what I mean? Because I'm not a monster. But I mean, just don't play with monsters, you know?
Yeah. So again, I'm not your dad. But again, people can see this card as bullying if you're going to make them do something they don't want to do and that it's not fun. Unless everyone's in on the joke, maybe don't make the joke. So Old Buzzbark is another card I want to talk about. So Old Buzzbark is from Unstable. X red green for a 3/3 Goblin Warrior. When it enters the battlefield, roll X 6-sided dice onto the battlefield from a height of at least X inches. For each die, put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the result on each creature you control that it is touching. And for each die, Old Buzzbark deals damage equal to the result to each creature an opponent controls that the die is touching. The reason I suggest you don't play with this card, but I'm not your dad, is that when X starts getting very big, we run the risk of damaging people's property. Even at X equals 10 inches off the table is a lot.
10 dice at 10 inches, yeah.
That's a lot of damage you could do by dropping big plastic dice on the table, especially since this card encourages you to play with bigger dice because you want them to touch more of your cards. So maybe be careful if you're playing with Old Buzzbark, and if you are playing with Old Buzzbark, don't be upset if I grab a playmat and put it over all my stuff before you start rolling.
Oh, wow. That doesn't say anything about that now, does it?
Now, usually when you play cards like this, the battlefield's supposed to freeze in place while it's on the stack, but don't damage my stuff.
Yeah, legit.
I mean, it could bounce off and like smash a TV or something. You know what I mean? If
exactly.
If it's one of those big dice we use on Commander Arcade. Legit.
Yep. So, I'm not your dad. Red Hot Hottie. This card is from Unhinged. It is the text on this one's a little hard to read because of the way the art is done on the card.
It's like dripping, like she's so hot the card is melted.
Whenever Red Hot Hottie deals combat damage to a player, put a 3rd degree burn counter onto a creature. Sorry, put a 3rd degree burn counter on that creature, and it has at the end of each turn sacrifice this creature. Unless you scream "ah" at the top of your lungs.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like I don't have to explain why this card is problematic.
Yeah, I don't think I wanted to be.
But I don't recommend screaming at the top of your lungs, 1. And 2, I don't recommend doing that in front of other people.
And multiple times.
Yeah, every turn.
Your voice
every
would
turn.
hurt so bad.
Yeah, so I can't recommend.
I agree with this.
I can't recommend playing with that one. Thopter Pi Network is one of a series of SilverBorder cards that are probably fine, but I might recommend against playing them because they require you to use food while you are playing your game. And using messy food and damaging cards is, again, something that I don't recommend. So
whatever, Dad.
What Thopter Pi Network does, 2 blue for an enchantment, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you are eating, create a 1/1 Thopter token. And then whenever a creature token you control dies, if it is represented by food in some way, eat it.
Well, Megan, you found a nice way to do this with your Build a Pony deck.
Oh, a nice way.
I say nice because I would have enjoyed eating those candy hearts, but you seem to have a problem.
I did have a problem. I did.
I thought that was a nice.
It was nice.
Nice solution potentially. If you like candy hearts, they're
if you
easy
like
to
them.
eat. They can,
or you could pick literally any other candy ever made.
An M&M and Skittle.
I'm only thinking back to the fact that I had chocolate foil to use as my treasure tokens that same game.
It was great.
Those were legit.
Great.
So again, talk to your table. Like if having food at the table is a problem, which often when you're playing a tabletop game, it is, maybe don't play this card.
But Eric, there's some SilverBorder cards that you think we should play.
Oh, absolutely. There are a ton of them. So the Unsanctioned expansion was a small set similar to the way that Magic does Jumpstart. It came with a bunch of 20 card half libraries that you are supposed to combine to be able to play, like Jumpstart. And many of the cards featured in this expansion are great cards to play in Commander or in any other casual format. The first example I want to give of this is the card A Cornelia, Fashionable Filcher. A 3 black for a 3/3 squirrel. Whenever you cast a spell with a squirrel in the art, you get an acorn counter. And whenever a squirrel you control enters the battlefield or dies, you get an acorn counter.
Yum, yum, yum.
And you can pay 2 and a black and pay X acorn counters to give target creature -X until end of turn. Or you can pay green and X acorn counters to give target creature +X until end of turn.
So cute.
And you get to play with all the squirrel cards in the art. You get to dig through Scryfall's art tagger to see if you can find cards that match this. And you get to build this very cool squirrel-themed deck where every card matters.
And A Cornelia herself is so cute.
I love squirrels, obviously, and I love this card. I love Earl of Squirrel as well, who happens to also be on your list.
Yes.
Squirrels for life. She's black, though. Are there a ton of black squirrels? Like, what if...
There's a lot of black silver-bordered squirrels. And then you get to play cards like Chatterfang, which is a green-black squirrel.
Because she also has green in her
Yes.
text box at the bottom
there it
so you
is.
can pay
Okay.
green
Yep.
black.
So you can play green
Great.
and black in this library. Booster Tutor is a lot of fun. Booster Tutor lets you open a Magic the Gathering booster and reveal all the cards and choose one of them and put it in your
Oh,
hand.
great.
Great.
Because who doesn't love cracking packs?
Nobody.
Exactly.
Why not have an
Literally
excuse to crack a pack?
Yes.
Yeah. I have one of these in my cube.
Excellent.
Vorthos, Steward of Myth, would be a great commander card to build around. When Vorthos enters the battlefield, you choose a magic character. And then spells you cast with the chosen character in its name, flavor text, or art cost Wooburg less to cast. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana used to play the card.
Okay, so who are you picking, Eric?
Well, the art suggests you should use Nicol Bolas.
Yes.
Who am I picking? Probably someone connected to the Weatherlight Saga. So like Multani or Sisay or Gerard, one of them.
Megan played Gerard in a video once.
Wolf.
I was just remembering the fake beard we painted on you. We stippled it on your face.
It is.
It's really giving She's the Man vibes.
It really does. You know, it's my proudest She's the Man moment. We can say that for sure.
You were giving She's the Man that day.
Thank you. Do you know what? Honestly, what more can I ask for?
Yeah,
Thank you.
so
Thank
true.
you.
What a cool card. I agree.
Yeah.
Eric.
Yeah, it would be really fun to build around. There's so many really cool characters in Magic that you could build in a deck around. And the fact that you get all 5 colors means you can build whatever you want to make it work. You could build something powerful. You could build something cool and thematic. You've got awesome options. And then the last thing I want to talk about in the fun category, I think these are fun, but they're very polarizing, are the contraption and attraction cards, represented here by Goblin Blastronauts and Rentrigger. So these are the series of cards that either have you assemble a contraption or open an attraction. Which adds a little bit of a mini game to the game, but lets you do some very fun things on your turn, tracking triggers and getting very silly effects going.
The deck that I play in our SilverBorder Commander is an attractions deck. And let me tell you, it was so fun.
Oh, it goes off.
It went off and I loved it. It was a really great time.
I mean, it's just an extra bonus cool thing that you get to do at the beginning of your turn.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, it's all value. And it's just so fun because you never know exactly what it's going to be.
True.
Yeah,
So,
if
yeah.
you like triggers, you will love attractions and contraptions.
I
Say
noticed
that 10 times fast.
you've put Alexander Clamilton on this list.
Yes, I own an Alexander Clamilton commander deck.
Yes, I want to hear about it.
Tell us all about
So
him.
Alexander Clamilton, 2 and a blue for a 0/4, Clamfolk Advisor Rebel. Whenever you cast a wordy spell, scry 2. Now, what wordy means is that the card itself has at least 4 lines of rules text. And then you can pay 1 and a red and tap it. Choose target creature you don't control. Then reveal the top card of your library. Alexander Clamilton gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of lines on that card's rules text. And then Alexander Clamilton fights that creature. So every card of the deck has at least 4 lines of rules text. In some cases, the specific version of the card matters because maybe they printed a version that has 9 lines of rules text and then they reprinted it and it condensed down to like 6. So you want to make sure you have the proper version of the card.
Yes, indeed.
Like you don't want to be playing the textless cryptic command, for example, in this library. The actual cryptic command will do some heavy work.
Great.
Textless cryptic command.
Yes. So this deck is a lot of fun. It's mostly black bordered cards. Because I find SilverBorder to be a lot more fun when you have a dash of it rather than committing to the whole bit, because then it can get a little silly. But the deck is a lot of those.
You say that getting a little silly like it's a bad thing, Eric.
Oh no, it's great. Just moderation is important.
All right, okay.
But the deck is a lot of fun. Going through Scryfall and trying to find cards that have lots of lines of text, but also do something in an Izzet deck is a little harder than you would expect.
Sure.
If I were to rebuild this deck today, because I built the deck several years ago, it would be much easier. There are several like precons that they've built in Izzet that have just tons and tons of lines of text. Legendary Izzet creatures that have tons of lines of text. Izzet sorceries and instants that just do everything. Yeah. So this card is a lot of fun. You get to pull from a huge pool of cards and then get to have some very wacky things happen, especially since Alexander Clamilton, he's not going to throw away his shot, but you might reveal an island and die.
Yeah. Well, I tried.
Now, if you really want to go deep with Alexander Clamilton, there is a set of basic lands from Secret Lair that was released that are full text basic lands.
Yes. That break down exactly how a land works.
Yes. The cards have no art. They are all text.
It's so good.
Which if you really want to go deep on that deck, maybe play those basics.
Oh my goodness. I want to find them now. I'm like just looking to see how many lines of rules text they have.
Eric, you mentioned something here that I wanted to touch on, which was you said your SilverBorder decks don't have to be all SilverBordered, everybody. That would be very, very difficult and maybe impossible. Yes. So you said a dash is a good thing to keep in mind when you're deck building. What else would you say you should keep in mind if you're building around a SilverBorder commander?
Usually if I'm building a commander deck, I want to have a reason to have the card in there rather than just putting in there because it's powerful or because it's silly. So in my Grimlock commander deck, Grimlock is the auto-bought silver-bordered card that I don't have the text up, but you're frantically searching for.
Here you go. I got you.
Grimlock says dinosaurs, vehicles, and other transformer creatures you control get +2/+0. My Grimlock deck is a dinosaurs deck. So when I built this, I searched through all the different SilverBorder cards that I could put in here and found a handful of them that would be fun in a dinosaurs themed deck. So the card Yet Another Aether Vortex is in this library because being able to put a dinosaur into play from the top of your library is really fun.
I loved that card. It does come up in our game, everyone.
Also, just heads up, I looked it up and the all text mountain has 25 lines of text.
Yeah.
So it would be quite good.
Excellent.
Yes. So my Grimlock deck, I believe, only has 4 silver-bordered cards in it. When I was working with Megan to build Myra, we ended up with a lot more silver-bordered cards in that library, but that's because a lot of the attractions cards, the ones that open attractions or deal with attractions, are silver-bordered cards.
Sure.
So we had a good reason to put those in the library without it kind of mucking up the thing. Yeah. So acknowledging like, hey, this card is really cool, but does it really fit the theme of what I'm going for is the question that I like to ask myself. Yeah. That being said, if you want to play cool, powerful cards, you could come up with an excuse to put just about anything in your deck.
True.
But the reason I played Urza Academy Headmaster is because the deck was themed around the Weatherlight Saga and all of the different characters from then. But you could come up with another reason to play Urza Academy Headmaster. Maybe you want to play Planeswalkers. Maybe you just like very random things happening. Again, like... I want you to have a reason to do this rather than just doing it because I think the jokes hit a lot harder when you're building around them or you're being able to maximize the effect or do something very silly with it rather than just throwing it in there because, oh, this card is silly.
I think that's a great point. Mm-hmm. You know, that's true of all comedy. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Accurate.
Have a reason why you're doing it.
Timing, setup, it's all there.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can
Except
do
the rule of 3. That is specifically not allowed
Yeah,
in
no,
Commander.
not allowed in Commander. No rule of 3.
Eric, this has been a fabulous conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, thank
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I hope I spark in our listeners the want to play some of these cards and maybe have a deck that has SilverBordered, so that if I show up at GameStop and I'm playing a pickup with some folks there, that we could maybe play some SilverBordered Magic.
Oh man, give it a try. And if you're still on the fence, go watch this week's Commander Arcade episode, because let me tell you, how could you watch it and not want to play it? It's so fun.
mean, it's a total blast, everybody. Yeah. And honestly, having this talk with you, Eric, has made me way less scared of SilverBorder cards, if that doesn't sound too silly.
Absolutely.
Because you've done such a great job of breaking them down and talking about just things you need to think about before you play, and like cards that are, like honestly, they're not too different from a normal Magic card in a lot of cases. So yeah, everyone check out in the show notes Eric's list here of the different buckets of Magic cards, sort by type and tags to be able to see the buckets that he put them into, the figurative buckets. And they're also going to be down below the YouTube in the description, so you can check that out if you're watching the video version of the show. And see Eric on Commander Arcade every single month over at youtube.com/@GLHF we have a blast playing with you, Eric, and we're so happy to know you and to have your gifts here in deck building and your knowledge about Magic. That is 2.5 levels above mine.
2.5 levels.
Thanks once again to Judge Eric for stopping by the show and helping us out today. And thank you as well to all of the people who make our show happen every single week. The patrons, patreon.com/GLHF Magic.
Yes. Again, it really means just so much to us. Thank you for supporting the show.
Yeah.
If you are not yet a patron, remember you can always go over to patreon.com/GLHF Magic and become a patron. Today, we're going to talk about all our favorite board games, the 3 of us, that aren't Magic. And it is like, there's some great games.
I think it's an excellent conversation, and that's available for our producers.
So
if you're a producer, you're in luck. That's a great convo you get to hear at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
Everybody else, you can dream about it or become a producer. We've also got a tip jar if you want to see the other end of the spectrum. That's just $2 a month, honestly.
We love it.
We love it, and we can't thank you enough. So, yeah, it really, really matters, honestly, everybody. If you're like, does this matter? The answer is yes, it absolutely does.
Yes, it matters. Oh, so my goodness. Do you want to do something that we can 1,000% guarantee you matters?
In the world? You make a difference?
Literally any amount of support of Good Luck High Five.
It really is wonderful. So patreon.com/GLHF Magic. Check out Card Kingdom. Online at cardkingdom.com/GLHF. Get yourself some SilverBordered. I know you're all hankering for it. After this episode. What a weird word.
It really is.
But it is one of those words where you're like, yeah, I understand that is the meaning of that word. It sounds like what it is.
It sounds like what it is.
In a way. You know what I mean?
All right. Hopefully this episode left you hankering for more, and we'll see you next week.
Great.